Hi everyone. So if you're watching this right now, I am probably not at school, but I don't want you to miss any lessons. So therefore, I am creating this video lesson. So once again, good morning. I am Doreen Nathalie R. Caperal from second year BSED English. And right now, I'll be discussing to you Chapter 3, Adapting Materials. So what are adapting materials? So adapting materials, these are about the affecting changes to make them suitable for learners and their needs. The need to adapt or modify the use of given textbooks and other language teaching materials to fit the requirements of a particular learning situation. When we mean adapting, it's how we adjust in order to fit in. We adapt in order to give the suitable materials or suitable learning for the learners and to adapt or for their suitable needs. We adapt to the environment, we adapt to the student, we adapt to the class situation. We consider the individual differences. Why should we adapt materials? So course books written and publishers work very hard to ensure their product meets their customers' needs. So they create textbooks for the needs of the students, of course, considering all the lessons that they have to learn, considering what they need on that particular year level. So, this mentions that there will never be perfect fit between the materials, the teacher, and the learners. So, these factors includes the degree of language proficiency and confidence. So, of course, mentioning we have individual differences, the previous personal learning experiences, own personality, whether that person is an introvert or an extrovert, the preferred teaching style, and uh, kung saan sila nasanay, if where they are most comfortable learning, and their cultural background. So Mission and Timis mentioned in 2015 that it is right to adapt materials according to the teacher's own preferences and insist that adaptation must be driven by learners' needs instead of teachers' whims or preferences. So Mission and Timis are more on about what the learners needs. So we or the future educators or the educators adapt based on the needs of the students. So this for them, it is right on for the teachers to pick their own preferences, to insist adaptation. It's driven by learners, but it's picked by the teachers in order to find the suitable learning or in order to find what suits them the best. On the other hand, Mali in 2015 mentioned that for reasons to do with the economics of publishing, amongst other things, the materials are intended to be used by the largest possible number of learners. We adjust, we adapt, of course, basing on how many or for the majority of the students. We can't just adapt because of only one student. We adapt for the majority need of all the pupils. So Mali in 2011 argues that what is needed is not just decentralization on materials production, but a fundamental change in the design of materials in the direction of providing greater flexibility in decisions about content, order, pace, and procedure. So there are some things that we have to consider in order before adapting. We have to think about the content, whether will it suit the students' needs or will it suit the curriculum, the order. Is it in the right order that we can practice the knowledge or the skills of the students? The pace, are we going too fast or are we going too slow? And about the procedures, whether what we have to do or what the material says will be applicable for the students that we handle. So there are some techniques that can be applied to content to bring out change. For first, adding. We can add information. So we can just not settle on the textbook. We can find on other reliable resources. Number two, deleting. We should be knowledgeable about sorting out the relevant and irrelevant information on our lesson. Number 3, modifying. So if you think there is something wrong within the lesson or there is something confusing, we can modify it by clearing it out. Number 4, simplifying, using more simple words, disregarding the complex words which students can't comprehend. And number 5, reordering. We can fix it in order from the easiest to hardest before we can execute something or material developing inside the classroom. So again, the 5 techniques are: number 1, deleting, number 1, adding, number 2, deleting, number 3, modifying, number 4, simplifying, and number 5, reordering. Now, there are also some strategies that we can make materials more effective. How can we make our materials more effective? Number 1, give it a rest. Students tend to get bored when they can see the same instructional materials or the learning materials every day. Give it a rest so students can have more interest or they can have more focus when they see new materials in you. So you, of course, you should develop more materials. And number 2, change it. Develop more artistic or creative materials that can tackle the topic in a more accurate manner. And number 3, do it yourself. Don't just base it on the books. Don't just ask for it to your co-teachers. But instead, you can do it yourself. Now, here are the types of classroom adaptation. We have the teacher-centered adaptation. It is wherein the matters are left for teachers to handle. Means the teacher will be the one to decide on whether what things to do in order for the pupils to adapt. Number 2, we have the student-centered adaptation, wherein we facilitate the learner's environment and we promote the use of material adaptation and also to apply them in teacher development. We focus on the needs of the students. So we base on with what we think the students need before we do actions in order for the learners to adapt. So now that I gave you an introduction about adaptation, let me now tackle the key features in material adaptation. So the first one is the learner-centeredness and critical awareness development. So there are very few truly learn-centered language teaching and learning materials. The material should put learners at the center of the learning process and make them input providers. Means teachers do not just give and give information continuously to the students, but the learners should also be involved and give input for us to see if they can understand the lesson. Teachers should be facilitators and coordinators. They will just be the one to facilitate and to guide. So nowadays that we're now in a learner-centered environment, we focus on helping the learners execute or tackle a lesson by themselves. Adaptation should be shared between materials developers, teachers and learners. Of course, we should share it in order for them to understand their concept and in order for them to carefully tackle the lesson so they can understand what we are doing inside the classroom. Next is the flexibility and choice. So we should always provide choice. Excuse me. I'm not currently feeling well. We should enable the learners to develop a variety of skills and learning style. In short, we should be flexible. We should make use of the environment. We should make use of our own creativity in order for us to create new learning materials. Open-endedness and aesthetic experience. So this originated from the theory of aesthetic response by Rosenblatt in 1995. So it is a process of reacting spontaneously when reading literary text. So represents the immediate response to language and literature. This involves the interaction between the readers, the language, and text. So this usually happens when we are asked to create reflections or reaction paper after reading some literary text. It is how we respond based on what we read, what we watch. So it is our reactions, spontaneous reactions on how or on what do we see or hear, of course. Next, aesthetic experience. What is aesthetic experience? So this promotes the subjectivity of text and their various interpretation. So through the aesthetic experiences, we promote the relevance, universality, authentic outputs, and we provoke the students into learning the topic and creating our tasks. Now let's talk about the materials and digital technology. First, what is connectivism? So it is a learning theory of for digital age. We connect. A lot of people now connect through the use of social media, internet, wireless fidelity, or Wi-Fi. So now the internet and the mobile technology are a sea of information and activities, making its use during lessons a little daunting. We can get accurate informations in the internet only if we know how to find reliable resources. So, this is connectivism. It is how we make use of the internet and the mobile technology into finding relevant information and making activities, making use of technology. So Lam and Hampel in 2007 mentioned that this model for online task development enables the capacity of technology to meet the demands of class learning objectives. So now we are now in the 21st century. We are currently experiencing innovation, changes. We have to adapt on changes. So we should also now make use of the technology around us. So if we are used to traditional learnings, we can transfer or we can have a mix with the digital learning, making use of technology, applications such as Google Meet, Zooms, and many more. Paulsen mentioned in 2009 that the effective use of online materials may provide positive spin-offs for learners, much same as if they were immersed in the language and culture while studying abroad. So I know most of us are aware of the ESL teachers wherein they teach online. They provide online materials, teaching language to the people all around the world. So this implies in what Mr. Paulsen mentioned in the theory. So we are now immersed in the language and culture while we are making use of the technology and innovation around us. So there are some learning applications that we might need in 2021 or 2023 or the 21st century. So the best app for busy learners is Duolingo, wherein you can find so much articles you can use for your school, of course. The best app for reading skills is the Bilinguap, so wherein you can find more literary texts in different languages. Best app for word association is the Memrise. This from the word itself, it can help you memorize and associate different words which you are unfamiliar with. Next is for the community support is Busu. For beginners, the 50 or 50 languages. For innovative features, the Mondly. The best all-in-one language application is the innovative language. So as you may see, this all application involves language in learning. And these applications are very or will be very useful, especially in the 21st century that we are now being digitally literate and communication literate. So again, let's have a recap of our topic. So here we have adapting materials. What are adapting materials? This is the materials we can use, or this is the affecting change that we use in order to make learning materials suitable for the learners and their needs. Why should we adopt? Because there will never be a perfect fit between materials, the teachers, and the learners. And of course, the writers and the publishers works very hard to publish products that meets the students and demand. We adapt materials based on the needs of every learners. So next, we have the techniques that can be applied to content to bring out change, which is adding, deleting, modifying, simplifying, reordering, adding information, deleting information that help us sort out relevant from irrelevant information, modifying or clearing out the information, simplifying information using simple words instead of vague and unfamiliar words, and reordering. We reorder it from the easiest to hardest or back and forth, vice versa. So we have the strategies to make material more effective. First, give it a rest. Don't use it continuously. Number two, change it. Have an originality. Find an alternative. And number three, do it yourself. Unleash your creativity. Make your own materials. So we have two types of classroom adaptation. The teacher-centered adaptation, wherein it focuses that the teachers will be the one to handle the matters. And the student-centered adaptation, wherein we facilitate learner involvement. We based it on what they need. We based it from what we observe that they should be using inside the classroom. Key features in materials adaptation: learner-centeredness and critical awareness development, flexibility and choice, open-endedness and aesthetic experience. And the materials and digital technology, connectivism, learning theory for the digital age that makes use of the internet and the technology as a sea of information and communication, making use during lessons, and many more concepts. So Lam and Hampel, the model of online task development, enables the capabilities of technology to meet the demands. For Paulson, the effective use of online materials provide positive spin-offs or positive outputs for both learners and the teachers. And the few learning apps you might need: Duolingo, Bilingual app, Memrise, Busuu, 50 languages, Monthly, and innovative language. So that sums up my lesson for today. I hope you learned something, and I will be giving you the PowerPoint if you would be needing it. So for my assessment, I will be passing it through Google Forms, and I will be hoping for your learning and your submission within the next day or three, or maybe on you can pass it on Monday, so there's no problem at all. So once again, I am Dorina the Archiperal, and I hope you learned something from my lesson. Good day and God bless.